kings, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and booty walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti. Black girl magic, melanin popping. Whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog. When God made you, boo, you know he showed out. Mahogany enchantress, blessings overflow now. Picture of success, seductive silhouettes on a spiritual quest. Manifest and be blessed. Mother, sister, auntie, tribe of Ashanti. Rocking your locks, I got a close crop blondie. The curse and the gift, uplift, apply pressure. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. My name is Ursula. I'm a mental health and wellness advocate and a transformation life coach. And each week, I promise to deliver relevant topics geared to our community so that we can ignite the fire from within. Welcome to season 3. This is a fun episode, yet informative. But first, before we get into that, I just want to take care of a little housekeeping. Make sure you check out my website, blackgirlsgettingtheirshifttogether.com. There I have coaching packages, different information. Please log in, check it out, as well as go to the audio podcast that drops every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it'll be an audio version of what you're watching now, plus the extra little spices in it. And also, when you're listening, please give me a review. It really helps podcasters a lot. And share with a minimum of 2 of your friends. I would so greatly appreciate it. And guess what? August 16th is Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together 1 year anniversary. So I have some special things lined up, but we'll get into all of that later. You just have to check out my social media. All right, we're going to get right into it. This is a very good episode because August is National Wellness Month. And it's great because it flowed right in from July. July was Minority Mental Wellness. Hey, Tina Davis. I'm well. How are you? So with that being said, I'm going to bring my special guest who I absolutely adore. Are you ready, Celeste? She is.
Hi.
Hey, Celeste.
Hi, thank you. So congratulations. I can't believe it's going to be a year. That's crazy. I'm so excited that you kept going. And you're pressing forward, and I hear about all of your wins, and I'm just excited that it's going to be a year. This is so exciting.
Thank you. And thank you for your encouragement on the back end. For those who do not know, Celeste is my mentor. She is a global renowned therapist. We're going to get into her in a minute, but she had me on her last September. It was your season. I'll never forget, because you were the first person that asked me to come on their podcast.
Oh, stop playing. I broke your cherry.
Busted wide open.
Oh, snap.
And it didn't even hurt. I was nervous, but I went through with it.
Couldn't tell.
So yeah, Celeste, she's been encouraging me, and I've been encouraging myself as well.
Yes, you have.
I have been. So, matter of fact, can we talk about that at the end of this show, so I can share with you some?
It's your show. It's your show, whatever.
So don't log off when we're done. But everyone, just to let you know, Celeste the Therapist. First of all, if you have any questions for Celeste, I put the link so that you can come on live if you'd love to come on and ask Celeste a question. But today's topic is about finding a therapist and what to expect at your first therapy appointment. And this is a loaded episode, because a lot of people, several people, they contact me, they slide up in the DMs, and first of all, they're shocked that I've gone to therapy and that I'm open with it, which I wasn't before. But I realized that there's a stigma attached, which was the genesis of Black girls getting their shift together. And several people never wanted to come on air just to ask, because they were ashamed with the social stigma attached, as well as the self-stigma attached, as if it's embarrassed. So they'll ask me some questions and I can just give them my experience. But I said, well, why not have a therapist come on? And Celeste, she's streamed over 100 countries, I believe, with her podcast. She's been on Fox Soul, and she's one of the top Black influencers of Black mental health and wellness. So she's the perfect person to ask. So Celeste, do you mind telling everybody about you, a little quick short bio?
Yeah. So again, thank you for having me. I always love being here with you. You know how I feel about you. So I am 38. I got 4 kids, married. I grew up, I thought therapy was for white people. I always like to share that piece because I recognize like the stigma. So I'm really big on meeting people where they are, because I understand how hard it is to kind of, admit that you're struggling when, as an adult. It's kind of like, imagine if we didn't know like ABCs or our colors, and then all of a sudden, like, we're learning this stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, that's how you spell words, right? Like, so it feels like not knowing about mental health feels like you're doing life like hard for no reason, So, my goal really is to kind of help people get comfortable with expressing how they feel, acknowledging their emotions, so that they can have a little bit of peace and joy in life, because I think it's available for all of us.
Absolutely. And what I love about you and your platform is that, which I also love, with the shifting the mindset. And I also used to think that therapy was for rich people. I thought therapy was for white people. And I thought you had to always be in distress to have therapy. And that's not always the case. That is the case, but that's not only the case.
Right.
And there's so many resources out here, more than I knew. I had no idea. So it's definitely accessible to people with or without insurance. Yeah. So what made you want to become a therapist?
So, I think that I kind of fell into this field by mistake. I was talking to people, and, they would say, like, thank you for talking to me. I had no idea that, I had this like natural gift. I was talking to white men in a homeless shelter, and I was a 19-year-old Black girl. So that kind of led me to recognize, like, I really enjoyed helping people. And so my major initially was nursing. I don't know what I was thinking, because I can't do no blood or nothing gooey. I don't know. I was just thinking about that Monday. So then I found out, like, you can go to school and become a therapist and I ain't got to deal with no blood. So, I switched my major to psychology and the journey started from there.
And now look where you are.
Yeah.
Amazing. What's your clientele? Is it mostly men, women, younger, older?
So, I have a mixture. I think that when I initially started my practice in 2015, I was mostly Black females, I think. And I think that, through my, from 2016 up until now, my social media presence, my online presence has allowed more people, genders, race, socioeconomic status to tap into me. A lot of times when people connect with me, they say, oh, you're just like you are, online. So for a few years, I was going live before my podcast just to talk about mental health and so I think my clientele just kind of looks different. It's not like one population or just females. That I have males, females, Black, white, everyone comes to see me.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the questions, but I'm going to share with everyone how you and I met on the internets. So as I was going through my own personal development journey, and I stopped watching TV for a year. Matter of fact, it was the weekend Kobe. It hurts me. The weekend Kobe passed away. Maybe a little before that, and I stopped watching TV, and I just deep dive right into podcasts, and I came across Celeste, and I did a deep dive on all her podcasts. And at the time I was going to therapy, and I remember I was listening to Celeste when I was at work. And so when I got home, I was just replaying what I heard on the podcast. And one sentence she said that was a game changer. She said, we go through life just living and surviving, but thriver when you want to thrive for yourself. And when she said that, I think I cried for 15, not I think, I know I cried for 15 minutes, and it was an experience. Anyway, I slid up in her DMs.
She did.
And I told her in detail what I just told you all. And she returned, I couldn't believe it. She returned my message. And this was me when I read it, like, oh, she returned my message.
I do. I get a lot of those messages, and my heart just melts, and just hearing you say it, I that was over a year ago at this point. I just remember reading it and thinking, like, this is why I do what I do, and so, I'm just grateful that you shared your experience with me, and that you even gave the podcast a chance, because stories like yours are the reason why I do this, and because I went from surviving life to learning how to thrive. And so I think, a big reason why I'm so consistent and I do what I do is because I want everybody to have that experience. So I'm grateful to you.
Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. And, piggybacking on what you said, another statement you said, I believe you were talking to Jeff. He is so fun. I love when you two get on. Yeah, the beard stroke. I hope he's gonna watch this. I would dedicate this show to the beard stroke. I remember you all were talking, and you all said liking yourself to going to school, and getting a C+ is okay, but why not strive to get an A? Mm-hmm. And same thing in life. Like, you're okay, but why not be great? Yeah. Why not thrive?
Yeah. And I think it's hard for people if, you're surrounded by people that are not thriving. So your environment feels normal, right? Sometimes chaos feels normal for people if they've never experienced peace. And so, my goal is, when I see clients, is to help them just kind of recognize that pattern of, you know what, I find myself kind of content in chaos. and helping them see a different story, because they've only seen one story their entire life. So I have a lot of compassion for people that are like knee deep in it, and to help them kind of like see themselves in a different way.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Do you see the question I posted on here by the lovely Tina Davis? Tina, we're going to get into that right now. Celeste, you wanted to know, how do you find a good therapist? But I'm going to go, if you don't mind, and I have some notes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we'll call this a beginner's guide to finding a therapist.
Sounds
So
good.
we'll start with Tina's question. How do you find a therapist?
So, I think that there's different ways to find a therapist. If you have insurance, you can actually contact your insurance, ask them for a list of therapists that are on your panel that take your insurance. So this is they can send you a list. I'm on multiple insurance panels, and periodically they check in with us to find out if we're still seeing people. So that's like one way. Another way is Psychology Today. On Psychology Today, you can actually type in your zip code, you can type in the issue, and even the insurance you have, and search and look up their profile. Some people have their company's website there, so you can kind of vet in that way as well. And then, depending on, there's like smaller places like InnoPsych, Therapy for Black Girls, Therapy for Black Men. There are some databases that, like those I just mentioned, these three, that specifically targets Black clinicians. If people are specifically trying to find a therapist that looks like them. I will say that there's not a lot of Black therapists, so I wouldn't deter. I would definitely welcome the idea of giving a therapist that may not look like you a chance if you are struggling with finding someone that looks like you. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about getting what they need from, maybe someone that didn't look like them, and they got them up till so far, and then they needed a little bit more, especially if you're struggling. But those are some ways to kind of like search a database and get what you need for looking for a therapist.
Right. And it's not as difficult. This is just my opinion. It's not as difficult. Just because so much the technology that's there now and the information overload. What I love about Psychology Today, I believe you could even put in what gender you want.
Yep.
Do you want a Black woman, Black man, white?
Yeah.
Everything.
And look at their picture. I will say though, I think when we're struggling, trying to find someone can be hard because sometimes you're playing phone tag, sometimes you're playing email tag with the clinicians, right? It's not like calling a doctor's office and seeing a doctor. You can go in, you got some kind of like issue, you speak to anybody for that. It's not, you don't need an intimate connection with a therapist. But I do know like the beginning stages of searching can feel very challenging. So go into it understanding that, so you're not caught off guard when it's a little bit of a wait. Somebody said it's kind of like looking for some new shoes. Sometimes you're going to like different stores until you find the right fit. So, I do want to like preface that as people are listening to this and on their journey to searching for a therapist.
Mm-hmm. I agree about the shoes. If you don't find one that doesn't fit, you're not going to walk around barefoot. You're still
Right.
going to look for a shoe that fits, that's a great fit for you. And it's just on how bad you want that shoe, right?
Yeah.
And there's also melanin and mental health. Black girls can heal. There's a lot, even if you go on Instagram and just type in something, you'll see so many therapists. And here's another, I agree with this statement, what Tina said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I'm with her. But to each his own, and whatever works for that, whatever shoe works for you, wear it.
And, as you're searching for, a good fit, I would definitely encourage people to think about, some podcasts like this, right? They have a lot of podcasts too, where therapists, like Therapy for Black Girls is one, where Dr. Joy has other therapists that come on. There are some other therapy podcast platform. Black Girls Heal is one by Sheena Tubbs. She's really good. She's really good. And so like podcast may not be the thing. Maybe YouTube may be your thing, or even some kind of like support group. Therapy for Black Girls has a sister circle where they do different things for like $10 a month. And then she has a platform on Thursdays for 1 hour where people can join the Zoom for free, where they can ask questions. So I know there's more than just Therapy for Black Girls. I bring her up because, I've been following her for a while.
Yeah, she's amazing.
But I know like there's other platforms that are doing similar things. So even if you just do a Google search, Black Girl Support Group, through my podcast and my, research, there's a lot of people that are doing different things. So I definitely would encourage you not to like put a pin and say my healing is on pause because I'm waiting for a therapist. I want you to look at the therapy as one tool that you're utilizing to help work through the stuff that you're struggling with, and not the only tool.
Right. I love that. The questions are coming in. We have one from Tina. Is insurance covered for therapists?
So, I've been in private practice since 2015. That's when I recognized that it's hard to get on every panel. And a lot of people in private practice, I happen to take a lot of insurances. A lot of people in private practice may only take a few because it's just a lot of like nuances to insurance. If I wasn't in private practice, I would have never knew how much nuances there are. But therapists are covered under insurances, and some people may have an out-of-network plan. And what that means is that your insurance will cover you even if the provider is not in network. It may be a little bit more money, just in case you find somebody that you may like and they take out of network. You can contact your insurance to find out if you have out of network coverage, and still be able to utilize that therapist.
What about sliding scales?
Yeah, so therapists do offer sliding scale. It's something that you can, a lot of times with psychology today, a lot of people's profile has that, and you can always ask. So, there's private practice, and then there's like health centers or hospitals as well. So for people that are connected with the clinic, you can get a referral from your clinic. A lot of times they have in-house therapists that you may be able to utilize. So that's another way too that you can, search for a therapist, is asking for your primary care clinic to give you a list as well. But yes, therapists are covered under insurance.
I love that you said that, because that's how I received my therapy. And then I was turned on that there are different grants in your state or counties that supply therapists, and you can have therapy for free or at a true minimal cost. But it's about doing research.
Yeah, it's the research. Every state is different with what they may have. So the same way we be Googling up the stuff that be happening in the shade room, we can Google up some therapy stuff. So it's really about like working on being intentional and thinking about like what is it that you're trying to achieve. So it will take a little bit of footwork, but I do recognize like the disparities, with our the financial barriers. A lot of people say go to therapy, but they don't talk about the financial barriers Even though there's barriers, like there are some solutions. So I definitely want you to kind of like not give up on that piece.
I don't know if this was somewhat the same question. Tina wanted to know, is that considered as mental health for my insurance? Is this a mental problem?
So I'm not sure what that means, but insurance has like behavioral health component. So you can call anybody that's listening to this and that has insurance. You can actually contact your insurance and find out what your behavioral health plan looks like. I know during the pandemic, a lot of insurance was actually covering 100% of people's like co-payments, or if they had a deductible, covering that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot. Blue Cross was actually all of the insurances I took. They were covering people's copays, so people were not charged copays. That was kind of like their answer to the pandemic. So definitely, you can contact your insurance to find out exactly what your behavioral health coverage looks like. So when you say a mental problem, you don't have to have a diagnosis to like see a therapist. You don't have to have any kind of major illness to see a therapist. You can just see a therapist, and it's covered under your behavioral health plan.
Speaking of that, what are some of the I hate to say common and normal, but what are some of the common issues, or I hate to even say issues, but when people come to see you, what are some of their chief issues that they want to see a therapist?
So a lot of times, like I'm diagnosing people with adjustment disorder. I think that with change, right? There's a lot of different changes that are happening in people's lives. I mean, now, recently, a lot of things that are happening from the pandemic, anxiety, depression, a lot is coming up for people that a lot of the people that I've gotten during the pandemic, a lot of that was just a lot of past trauma that's kind of showing its ugly face, because a lot of the things that people were doing to kind of cope with life, whether knowingly or unknowingly, was canceled. And so if you can't go out, even if it's something healthy, right? You're not realizing like, oh, this is a coping mechanism I'm utilizing, and you're not able to do that anymore. Some of the pain that you may have not acknowledged surfaces up because, the body keeps the score. We hold on to pain. So I think that more often than not, I am helping people kind of connect the dots of how like something 20 years ago is connected to what's happening today. So it's rare that it's kind of like an isolated new thing that's happening. And even if that's what they think it is, the more I delve into their history and help them connect the dots, the more that they start to recognize the struggle that they're having.
May I add on to that? I love what you said about connecting the dots. In the first podcast you and I did together, it was about the body keeps the score. And I think it was in this book about this man who had serious GI issues. And he would just be violently sick when he would go to this certain restaurant as a child. And as an adult, he was getting sick when he would eat at this restaurant. So he decided to go to therapy for whatever reason. I don't know. But it would come up about his GI issues and how he would become so violently sick. And come to find out through therapy, he went back in the memory banks. He was at dinner as a child at that restaurant, and that's where his parents told him that they were getting a divorce.
And it's so interesting. Like I get a lot of revelations in the middle of sessions, and I'm not surprised by it anymore. It's when people share their story with me on the first session, I can tell how much work we're going to have to do. When people share their story and there's gaps in memories, or they're talking about it as if they're reading somebody else's story, like no emotional connecting to something like very traumatic, I said, oh, okay, we're gonna be doing some work, because they definitely were not a part of their pain. They definitely like escaped. And, they did the best they could as a child. And a lot of times, as kids, we escape through like just being somewhere else and not connecting. The ones that are like able to share details, have some kind of emotion to what's happened, I've recognized like they're halfway there, because they've been self-aware throughout this time. So, I just think that for people that, are struggling now, and especially, this is about how to start therapy. It'd be really good with getting an outsider's, analysis on things you may not be aware of. Because when you're in the picture, you can't see it fully. But I always tell people I'm outside, so I can clearly see what's taking place. Like as soon as people talk to me, like my I know it's only God, but it does something where I'm able to like hold space, and I just start dissecting, and I have a clear picture on what's taking place with them emotionally.
You're amazing.
Oh, thanks.
God's angel.
I don't know if my husband think that.
Tina wants to know. Well, I'll let you answer this, but Tina wants to know: are you located in Atlanta?
No, I'm actually in Boston, Mass.
Hey, neighbor. I'm from Massachusetts. All right, let's go to the next question. Well, so speaking of therapy, what are different types of therapy?
So I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. That's pretty common. And, sometimes people do brief therapy where they do maybe like 8 to 10 sessions. Some therapists like are only doing like short term, where they kind of help you through certain things, and then, they send you on your way. I allow people to make their own schedule. They are able to like go into my calendar, pick a time that works for them. I don't require people to come weekly or biweekly if that's not something that they feel they need. And then so like I end up seeing people like weekly sometimes at the beginning, then we take a break, and then something happens, we come back, we revisit, and we're seeing each other a little bit frequently, because I really look at therapy as like one tool to many things that we can do. I really help my client like see their power. So cognitive behavioral therapy just means that I believe that a lot of times our thoughts are faulty because of our experiences. And so I help break up some of those faulty thoughts and help people kind of clean their lens a little bit to see things clear. So CBT is one. There is psychodynamic, which explores a lot of like unconscious thoughts and fears. It's really connected with like a Freudian approach, if people have heard of Freudian. So there's that. There's solution focused. There's holistic. I think that even though like I'm a CBT, cognitive behavior therapist, I do a little mixture of everything, where I'm helping people kind of uncover some thoughts and fears. I'm taking a very holistic approach to the way that I do things. So what you'll find with therapists is that their approach to therapy just kind of looks different across the board. So when you're interviewing, because once you find somebody, you can ask if you can have like a free consultation, and you can like ask questions about their approach, how would they work through certain things. But my approach is definitely very versatile. I really do a really good job at meeting people where they are.
So therapists won't be offended if you ask? No,
because we're human. And so like, my style may not work for everyone. And I'm okay with that, right? Like, because I recognize like therapy is not a one size fits all. And so definitely like, don't be afraid to offend us by asking any questions about how we do things. What's our approach? What's our schooling? That matters. And so, yeah, like definitely we make mistakes too, believe it or not. Yeah.
Well, which therapy do you prefer, or is it truly just on the individual basis? But is there your go-to modality that you prefer?
So CBT, I'm heavy on the CBT, but I take a lot of holistic, a big holistic approach. I think a little bit of a psychodynamic, with the unconsciousness. I'm really big on inner child work. It's not something that I remember talking about in school. It's something that I, have learned about over the years, and I'm really heavy on sharing this information with the people I work with. Some people may hear of it as like shadow work.
Yes.
Yeah. So just kind of, because that's all of the connecting the dots, right? I think with the shadow work or healing your inner child, you can really work on gaining control back of your life. Because so many people, you don't feel like you're in control, because if I haven't reconciled with what has happened in my past, then I'm always gonna feel like a victim. And like for so many people that are adults and feel that way and feel stuck and feel like they can't get out of it, a lot of times it's because of like what has happened in the past. And so our brain does not have concept of time. So if I haven't reconciled with what happened when I was 8 years old, then what will happen is I'm 28 years old, a familiar feeling happens, right? Or a similar situation happens, and I feel stuck because my brain's like, oh my God, Celeste, you're 8 years old again. Like you don't have any control. And that's why like mindfulness is huge, because you can actually tell your brain, actually, I'm not 8 years old anymore. I got options. I got choices. And so a lot of us don't recognize the power we have. And so when I'm working with people, I'm really big on helping them see their way out of a lot of situations that they may not have known that was even possible because of like what has happened in their past.
Would you agree that an unresolved childhood issue from 8, now you're 28, and now you have an 8-year-old, would be the generational cycle, the trauma?
So so you can have a child, like that's another trigger, right? Having an 8-year-old child can bring up a lot of pain and a lot of trauma that has gone like unnoticed. And unfortunately, a lot of our people don't realize that, there's a lot of like really hard mother-daughter relationships that exist. And I believe it's because a lot of times, like, as Black women, we struggle with taking care of ourselves. We don't feel like it's possible. We haven't seen it done. And then we have children, and unfortunately, like end up trying to do better than our parents did, but struggling with that emotional piece because of like a lot of unresolved trauma.
Right. Wow. May I give you some love from Fallon LaFleur? Good evening, ladies. And someone said that Celeste is so dope.
Thank you. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Fallon. And hey, blind guy, his wife, she said that they've been listening and enjoying and appreciating all the resources.
Oh, good, good, good.
So let's see. What should you ask a potential therapist when narrowing down your options? I think we kind of went over that already.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, what I said, and then just there's no question that's if we feel like you're getting too personal, we would just say it. So definitely like be okay. It may feel uncomfortable, but just be okay. You're about to start a different type of relationship with this person, so it's okay to just put it out there right now.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So what should someone do before their first visit? Any prep work?
So, I think before your first visit, I send people out a client information sheet. It gives them some things to like really think about. I like for people to kind of think about what they want to work on. It's not necessary to like have it figured out. Think about like what's been stressing you. If there are any like medical issues that you have going on, to make sure that you are like writing that out, because through our sessions, a lot of times, like you talked about earlier, somebody with some kind of stomach issues, a lot of times that's rooted in anxiety. And so a lot of people, I always share that I used to have back pains growing up. And as I became an adult, I recognized that like when I'm stressed out and overwhelmed, I feel it in my back. So a lot of people don't even understand that some medical issues that they may be experiencing could be a direct link to some mental health struggles that they may be having. So just kind of like taking some time to like really think about anything so that it'll help us as therapists, like help you get to the root of the problem.
I'll share this story. I've shared with it on the pod before, how the body keeps the score and how it shows up, like you said. So when I was younger, I lived in a very stressful, dysfunctional, toxic home. And I was admitted into the hospital 3 times for stomach issues. And I didn't find out until about 10, 15 years ago. A parent told me that the doctor said there was nothing wrong with me. And then when I left the state is when all the stomach issues went away.
Yeah, too many of our people, we struggle for so long. And I think that that's why I'll come on your podcast and do this work, is because all those years of in and out of the hospital didn't have to happen. So, I think that especially the physical ailments, I'm big on like talking about that with people, so that they can see like they do, have some power. It may not feel like it, but they do.
Yeah, I challenge anyone listening to challenge yourself. And like Celeste said, it may be a little uncomfortable at first, but how it looks on the other side is so much better. Oh, and actually live with that feeling of thriving and joy, as opposed to just surviving and just making it, as opposed to living intentional each day, because you set your own path.
Yeah. And as you're doing this like kind of journey, know that it's going to look like this. It's not going to look like a straight line up. It's not going to be like, I'm healing. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, revelation dip. Oh my gosh, you're going to do like this. I think one of the hardest things about this process is that you start to learn some things, and it's hard. It's painful. And it's like, why wouldn't you have tried to escape the pain that you're feeling? Nobody wants to feel pain. But one of the things that I talk to people about is like, pain is a part of life. There's no way around it. And so just kind of like saying that to yourself so that you can mentally prepare yourself for this journey. I think a lot of times people that talk about this healing work talks about the like good times on the other side. But that in between part is, is really challenging. And, the same way like a doctor would say, like, in the next 6 weeks, you may feel some pain and blah, blah, blah. So you got the cast on, but you already know the doctor was like, it's going to be a little bit of pain. So you kind of are already prepared for that physically. And I think mentally, a lot of us aren't prepared for it because, I felt like therapy was like this fixer, and, that was going to be it. And so like, I always want to preface anytime I talk or when I'm talking about this stuff with like, it's not going to be easy. So that's something that I really, and it's not to deter you away from it, but I just feel like it's better when you know than not know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question from a listener. Farah, she said, do you recommend sharing your trauma with your children? It's so true. We repeat the abusive cycle without even knowing. Thank you, Farah, for your question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that, age is important. definitely keep an authentic and open dialogue with your kids about just that you're human. I didn't know that my mom had emotions. I mean, I don't really see it, but I know now because I'm an adult that she does, whether or not she expresses them or not. I think one of the things that I've done with breaking the cycle is I'm very open with my children about emotions. They getting on my nerves. I take a deep breath. My daughter, she hears, mommy's frustrated. You know what I mean? So she knows that that I'm human and that we're gonna feel emotions. There's emotion charts around the house so that they can actually start to express it. Sometimes traumas may be too much for your child to hear. So, I wouldn't say it's like a sit down, like, let me just lay out everything I've gone through. But in conversation, if it's warranted, like if there's some connection that can be made, where, you can relate to your child, like if, for instance, if you were bullied in school and your child has experienced bullying, kind of like sharing that with your child so they can see like, okay, you kind of get it, but I don't think it's like necessary to like sit down and share it all, if that makes any sense.
So what is age appropriate?
I mean, it depends on everybody, because I've been in this field for so long. I've heard some stories that sometimes I'll just never escape, right? Like that are on my mind. Like I think about these people. So I think some traumas would be too much for a child to hear. So whether they're an adult or not, I think, as you're thinking about trying not to allow your child to repeat cycles, like if you want to talk about some of the ways in which you may have like done things one way and wish you had have done it another way, like that is helpful with not repeating cycles. But I think specific traumas sometimes may be too much for some kids or even adults to handle. So just be mindful of that and thinking about like, if you do share, just thinking about like, why am I sharing this? Do I feel like this is going to be beneficial to my child? But prior to doing that.
That seems like a double-edged sword because when you think with a parent sharing that without being too graphic would help the parent as well in their healing?
It could. I wouldn't look to like share with my kid in order to get healing. Because I feel like it should be, I think it's my job to like work on myself, but not look to my kid to provide that for me.
Right.
But it does end up happening where, there could be a common bond. And I think, unfortunately, because cycles sometimes repeat itself, sometimes parents may have gone through some of the trauma that their child's gone through. And unfortunately, a lot of times parents are like hush hush, especially in Black households. We may not have, we don't really talk about it. And that's why, there's like a disconnect, in those cases, especially if there's similar trauma and you were able to work through it or you're working through it, it could definitely like benefit your child to speak on it, but only like if you're comfortable, like don't feel pressure to say something that you're not even ready to say. That's important. Yeah.
We have another question. And thank you everyone for your questions. And do know if you'd like to come on live right now and ask Celeste a question, there's a link in the description box and I'll see you in the backstage and bring you on. We don't mind. We encourage it. And also while you're in the description box, make sure and go to celestethetherapist.com. Check out her website, like, comment, share, go on her Instagram, as well as going to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Leave us both reviews or recommendations. We would love that. So we have a question from Fallon. I love that name. What state are you in, Celeste? Do you take telehealth patients? And what are your specialty diagnoses that you work in? We kind of went over this earlier, but
So I'm in Massachusetts. I actually only do telehealth. So from 2016 to 2019, I had an office. I started a podcast in 2018. So it's did well, and I speak a lot now. So I actually closed my actual office space down in the end of 2019. So January 2020, I've been full time in private practice through online. As far as my specialties, depression, anxiety, substance use, bipolar disorders, and psychotic disorders.
ooh. Do you know next month? I was very specific. I want to guess that look like us but have different faces. That does that make sense? So, look, I hate to say the look, but depression in Black
Okay.
people. And I found this sister, and you all can look her up. Her name is Tony. She's on Instagram, and her Instagram is Black and Bipolar.
Ah,
Yeah. And she is such a joy to talk to. I can't wait to have her on to be in the
yeah.
mind of what she goes through. And on her Instagram, she'll talk about the voices that she hears, and
Hmm.
that left and right have different voices, and they are very specific. I had no idea. And I feel it's so interesting.
Yeah, so she probably has like bipolar with some psychotic features.
Mm,
So bipolar looks different on everyone, but she'll tell you when you
yeah.
speak to her. But yeah, it's so interesting. I'm very. I think working at the homeless shelter at 19 really opened up my eyes to the different disorders there are. I have
Mhm.
such a passion for people that are experiencing like major mental health issues, because I feel like people they're left out of the equation. And I think a lot of times what I've recognized is like whether people are having a psychotic break or are struggling with something major, a lot of times it's connected to some unresolved trauma. So a lot, people that work with kids that are therapists, they're like, I don't know how you work with adults. I'm like, I don't know how you work with kids. But I think for me, when I see my adult, I see a kid. I see like someone that was born and got dealt a bad hand or
Yeah.
went through some things. So, I have like a lot of compassion for my people, because I recognize like nobody wakes up and acts, to have schizophrenia or to be bipolar. So
Hmm. That's wow. I learned that a lot of us walk around as adults, but wounded children inside, and it
yeah.
shows up on how we talk to our children,
Hmm.
our partners, our
Hmm.
friends,
Yep. Yep.
and how it looks in relationships. Oh,
That's what I'm saying at the beginning. It's like if you never knew about letters and you recognize that's why you don't know how to read, the same thing it comes with mental health, right? Like I feel like if we knew about our emotions, if we knew about reconciling our shadow work, the inner child, all that stuff, then we would be able to maneuver through our work situations or our relationships, a heavy topic that people struggle in because they're dealing with so much of their pain, but not able to name it. And so, like, there's something powerful when we're able to name our pain and name what we're dealing with,
yes.
right? I think that's important.
Ooh, that was a heavy hitter right there. Wow. I love that, Celeste. So we have another comment from Tina. She says, my mother refuses to accept that her daughters have experienced pain. We need family therapy. Yes.
Yeah, and I think Tina. I think that one of the things about what I do, because I deal with a lot of people that are struggling with their parent and their lack of acknowledgement for what has happened, and so I try to learn a little bit about the parent story and just kind of, so there is not so much anger that's sitting there. and reminding you don't need for that acknowledgement for you to validate your story, and recognizing that, sometimes the parents did the best that they could with what they had. And I just know, like, that's hard to accept when you haven't been made whole, or it feels like you haven't been made whole for what has happened. But I think that working through that, validating yourself, reconciling with yourself, a lot of the things that we are holding on to is actually not happening right now, August 4th, 2021. But the way we're framing it, and the way it's playing in our head, it feels like that's the reason why, but that's not really why, because you can never go back and change the past. You can only work on reconciling, accepting. That acceptance is huge, but also it's hard when you feel like you haven't been made whole. That's when you make yourself whole. That's when you work through your stuff. And that way you don't feel like you're waiting for, like, your mom to recognize what has happened, because you know what happened. And I think that's important, but that's a hard thing to kind of work through. So I do want to, like, say that, like, that's a very hard thing to kind of work through when the pain, especially when the pain is so great.
Oh, it doesn't feel good at all. Tina, what I learned in therapy, because I have a similar situation, and we can always talk offline, but my therapist my therapist suggested that I look within myself, like Celeste said, and practice radical acceptance. I never heard of it, but when I did my deep dive in it, and of course going to therapy about it, that was a game changer, because I realized that this particular person was not going to change. And like Celeste said, what happened had happened. And it was up to me to move on, because they're still going about their life in their own little world. But it was that radical acceptance. So I have one down and one to go. But Tina, thank you for being transparent on here, because that's a lot. It's heavy. That's heavy. And oh my God, thank you, Farah. She said,
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. She said, we do this effortlessly. All right. Thank you, Farah. All right. So, you know what? This is a good question too. What about, have you ever worked with anyone where you know it's not a good fit for you? Can a therapist fire a client?
I have had to. Yeah.
What? Well,
Yeah.
wait, how long? Like, does it go, like, do you get it from
No,
the first
it's a
or?
while. It's a while, and I think that I think when I was going to work feeling anxious, seeing this person, I knew that I wasn't gonna work well with this person. And unfortunately, this person was borderline. And I know, unfortunately, borderlines have people that are diagnosed with borderline disorder has a really bad rap. But it was definitely challenging for me. And so it's only happened twice, once with that and once with couples therapy.
Was it both couples, or was it one and you said, I'm good, or is both of you get the hell out the office? Like,
So
no.
I actually I don't have the patience for couples there. It's funny because I love talking about relationships, but I do not have the patience for couples therapy, because unfortunately couples wait until, like, they're at their last straw to see a therapist. I highly recommend, like, even if things are going, like, if it's a little bit rocky, like, start looking for somebody. Don't wait till it's the ultimatum, and if you don't see a therapist, then we're done, and it's just like. But no, I think I had, it's hard when you are not in therapy yourself and you're trying to fix something where a lot of that has to do with your stuff. And so I would have one of the parties walk out a lot in the middle of the session and slam doors and then call me after and say sorry. And it was just too many of those where I was like, I can't do this no more. And I had to stop. So yeah, I definitely I'm mindful of I'm frustrated with you. I know I'm not going to be able to keep going. And so yes, therapists can let a client go.
Was it a clean break, or did it feel like a
they understood.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they understood. So yeah, and I think therapists, we're human, right? But hopefully we are self-aware enough to know what works for us and what doesn't. And I'm a very assertive, clear communicator. So for me, it was easy for me to just say what I was feeling and why I couldn't work with this person or these people and give them referrals to other resources. I don't think I'm Captain Save the world. I recognize I can't do it with everyone, and I'm okay with that. That's okay.
Right. So what's your opinion about medication?
So I think medication should definitely be a last resort. I have clients who have done really well with adding a medication regimen to their cycle. I struggle when people go to the doctor and are struggling, and instead of figuring out is this an adjustment thing, is something happening, they'll just say, here, take this pill. And so I think I struggle with America and how they are just treating the symptoms and not getting to the root of the problem. So I'm not someone that's against medicine regimen, but I do think that we have to educate people that it's one piece of what needs to happen. You still got to do the work. I think the medicine sometimes helps people with some of the anxiety or some of the depressive symptoms that may be holding them back from starting their journey. And I've seen people do really well with adding that to their routine with me. So that's kind of my take on that.
Can you explain to the viewers what kind of medication or what medication is used for?
Yeah. So and also with therapists, so I'm a master's level clinician for master's. So I have a master's. So I'm a mental health therapist with a master's. They have psychologists with the PhD, but anybody that's prescribing medication has an MD or and nurse practitioners as well can assign medication.
I didn't know that. Bless you. I didn't know that.
So they do have prescribing nurse practitioners. So medication can be used to treat depression, anxiety. They have as needed medication, where some people will take a medication as needed, meaning there's something stressful happening, they're anxious, and it's called a PRN. But then they have medicines that people take on a regular regimen where they may take once a day or twice a day to kind of help. Some people start it and it helps them kind of get the strength they need to muster through some of the work that we're doing, and then they choose to get off. And some people swear by it and continue with the regimen. And so it's, services are not a one size fits all. So definitely be okay with talking to your doctor. If you do get prescribed something and it doesn't work, and, be okay with saying this isn't working.
Right.
They're practicing doctors, right? So their goal is to try to alleviate the pain as quick as possible. And they don't know if you don't tell them. So when you're in your doctor's office, it's your time, write down, the symptoms, write down the things that are going on as you're taking this medication, so that you can be clear with your prescriber on what's taking place.
So when you do go to your therapist, you've had your first appointment and it's a good fit. How safe is the information that your client shares with, or any client shares with their therapist?
So it's very safe. There's confidentiality that we kind of swear by. The only time that I have to like say something is if you're a harm to yourself or someone else. I think one of the things that happens where I worked in the emergency room, and people would come in, their therapists would send them to the emergency room because they were suicidal. One of the things that it can be a nuance or a difference is like you could be suicidal, which happens. A lot of people feel like they don't want to be here anymore. But then if there's a plan, right? So being suicidal with a plan, now that takes it to another level. So I do, when I'm talking to people, if they were to have a plan and they say, yeah, like I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, I can see, then I'm a mandated reporter. If they are harming children, if they're saying something that they've done, abused a child, it's not the spankings. It's not like I don't be calling nobody on no spankings, but if it was something harmful, or they were going to hurt someone else. So those are some of the nuance. Those are some of the things where we would have to kind of say something. But outside of that, everything is confidential.
So when you say that you were a mandated reporter, who would you report said information to?
It depends. So anything, with the kids, the state, and then if there was some harm, I was worried about whether they were going to harm themselves or someone else. I would have to call like 911.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Fallon, I didn't know Fallon is a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, she said, shout out to my fellow nurse practitioners. Yes, mostly psychiatric mental health.
Yeah.
Adult NPs, family NPs, women's. Wow. Prescribed medications for mental health symptoms and conditions. I just learned that. I was today years old when I found that out.
Yeah. There's some really good NPs. The psychiatric, they have, she can probably explain it better, but they do the psychiatric courses. And when I was working in the shelter, a lot of my clients had I found them to be more helpful than the psychiatrist. I feel like they took one. I don't know, but I mean, they were nurses first. I feel like nurses have a lot of bedside manners, and it's different. The psychiatrists, I feel like they didn't take as much time. This is just my personal. If there's a psychiatrist listening, I'm not trying to knock you. I'm just saying from what I've seen, the NPs took a little bit more time. But I just think it's probably the way that the schooling, the way the nurses went to school is different.
Look, and this is her stamp on it. It's the nurses.
Yeah, it's just different. It hits different when they work with my clients. When they was working with them, it was like, dang, yo, this is dope. I didn't get this from the psychiatrist.
We're going to start wrapping up. Do you have time for a few more questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So what should a relationship with your therapist look? What should it be like?
You should feel comfortable. I'm not saying you got to be airing everything out on day one. But, with me, I think most people do, because as soon as we start talking, they feel very comfortable. I've been working with people for so long. I can read people. I can know how far to push and not push. Over 2 or 3 sessions, if you're not feeling comfortable, if you're not feeling safe, it's okay to end the session and say, end your time with the therapist and say, I've given it a try. That's okay. So you definitely got to feel safe, and that you are getting something out of it. If you're not getting something out of therapy, some people be like, I just kept going because they said therapy works. And I encourage you to tell your therapist, right? Hey, I want you to push me a little bit more, or I'm feeling like I need some more tools, or I want to get something when I leave my session. Whatever you feel like you need. If you don't know what you need and feel like you're not getting what you need, say that. Like, it's okay to speak up.
Yeah, that would be my question. Like, how do you know what to ask for?
Right. So if you don't know what to ask for, but feel like nothing's changing, it's okay to speak up and say that I don't feel like things are changing. And then the therapist can work with you and figure out, is my approach a good fit, or do I need to tweak it a little bit? So you don't have to have the answers as to why it's not working, but be transparent and authentic, because it's your time, right? Like it's your time. And so like, that's okay. I can feel when things aren't working out, or when my approach, people are struggling. And
what does that look like?
It looks like, I have some people that are very guarded. And so for me, I'll just come out and say it. Like, I'll just come out and say, hey, like how is this working? Or how does this feel? Or what are you feeling right now? Like, I just call it out in the middle of a session. Like, that's how I am. Like, I'll just say what's happening or what I'm thinking. And it helps like break the ice, because I'm talking about like sometimes the elephant in the room. My engineer client, like people that are engineers, not everyone are like this, but they sometimes struggle with like the cognitive approach. They need very tangible like tools, and I'm so cognitive. I have to like take a step back and then remember, like, okay, I need to give them some more like kind of concrete things, or I need to like spell it out for them in a different way. So I just think that sometimes therapists may miss that. They may miss like the look on your face, or they may miss that you completely missed that. Yeah.
I'm laughing because when you said engineers, I was about to put, and I'm going to put him on here. Speaking of engineers, look who said hello.
Oh, hey, Derek. Derek's a different kind of engineer. You don't see engineers doing what he's doing, but I think
relationship gumbo.
Yeah, his brain definitely. He, the way he masterminds the things that he does, that's the engineer in him.
And
he has a lot of but he has a lot of like, so a lot of his social stuff. Sometimes engineers struggle with the social stuff that he's able to do. Like, he's definitely different.
And just as a side note, how I found out, I found out about Derek, who is on the Relationship Gumbo podcast, via Celeste. That's when I first heard about him. And then I went and did a deep dive on him. And then he's been on, and he's a real cool guy. And he's a NASA engineer, I believe.
Yeah. He's super smart.
Yes. He's my black IT guy.
He's super smart.
How do I do such and such? All right. So wrapping it up, what happens when it's time to stop seeing your therapist?
I think that when you're going, and sometimes I tell the people, like, it seems like things are going well. We can, especially if people are like on a weekly or bi-weekly regimen. I think sometimes people get used to, just they feel like safe with me, or they feel like I can only answer this with you. Like, I really help them like take a step back and remind them of like their capabilities. So when you feel like, like you're doing okay and you're managing, that's okay.
I love it. You know what? We have somebody that just popped in the back room, backstage. La Princess. I don't know her, but let's see. Hello.
You're brave.
I know. Oh, I got the. You have to.
No, take that off. No, take it off. I can see. Look at the picture. Take it off.
Oh. Thank you. I was looking at the wrong part of my bifocals.
I have to edit this part out.
I can't stop crying. Sorry.
Wrong show. Wrong topic.
Matter of fact, that'll be next week. I have Jet Setting Jasmine on. Oh my God. Did you read? Did you see what Fallon put?
We are out of control.
I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, let's end it. We're finished. But okay. Any party words?
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for continuing to be for, the culture and pushing your passion, forward with this platform and everything else that you're doing. I think it's amazing. I think there's power in community, and you provide that with so many different topics that you allow on here, so that people can really learn. A lot of times with these podcasts, is that people's entryway into really understanding something. So thank you. And for people listening, have grace with yourself. I like to say that all the time as you're navigating life. Life doesn't come with the book. But one of the things that I'll leave you with is what Will Smith said one time was pay attention to the joy in the moments, because you keep adding those up, you end up having a good life. And I think a lot of times we end up so engulfed in our pain that we don't see the sun, we don't see the roses. So definitely try to pay attention to the good things that are happening and celebrate those moments. I'm not saying that they're all good, but try to work on reframing your mind so that you can actually point out and see you deserve that. We deserve joy. And so don't, even if you've never been told it, right? Sometimes you gotta believe in somebody else's belief in you before yours kick in. So you deserve joy, you deserve peace despite what has happened. So yeah, I would just leave people with that. And thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you for coming on. I hope that this isn't the last time. I won't.
No, of course not.
I'll adjust the bifocals better. But I really do appreciate when you come on, because you have so many gems when you come on. I love your podcast. I love when you and Jeff come on. You know how to pick them. So
thanks.
How can people find you?
Go to celestethetherapist.com. You can find all of my social media platforms. I'm on all social media platforms at Celeste the Therapist. Yeah, that's how you can find me. Thank you.
Can you tell everybody briefly? Oh, thank you, Fallon. This was so good. Can you tell everyone about Shifting the Way You Think?
Yeah, book? So I have a guided journal called 365 Days of Thank you. I always forget. I have a guided journal called 365 Days of Intentional Living. Every day in the journal, I'm asking, I'm trying to see if I have one. Every day in the journal, I'm asking you a new question to help you kind of break up some of those thoughts. I'm asking you how you're feeling. And, that derived from me just coming online and, talking about mental health and telling people to start writing. I would just write down how you're feeling. When I was a teenager, I remember I had a journal and I didn't realize how therapeutic that was for me. But I do remember when I would write, I would feel better for that moment. And so I recognized that. And so I created this guided journal. And then I also created a book called Relationship Goals. It's a guide to a healthy relationship. Because I recognize people don't understand the fundamentals of relationship. Everybody wants it, but everybody doesn't understand about the work that has to happen. And so like you could find that on my website, celestetherapist.com/shop.
I love it. I love it. Well, we are having people come in, and thank you, Rolando, for the comment. He said, amazing live stream. This is one of my favorite podcasters, Erica. Love her. She's associated with Derek as well. That's how I found out about her. Nice. She has an amazing, but she said she'll have to go back and watch from the beginning. Yes, Erica, please just ignore an hour, 10 minutes in. Just I have a lot of editing to do. So other than that, you all, if you have any questions, definitely you can reach out to myself at blackgirlsgettingtheirshifttogether.com for coaching packages, for merch, digital products, as well as celestethetherapist.com. You all have a great evening. Thank you again, Celeste.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
For the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and booty walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you guys give to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together.